So let me go ahead. Profitable pricing of products and services. So what that means is that you're selling at a price that's more than your full cost. So that's the basic principle at work here. Okay, so the agenda for what I'm going to cover here in the next few minutes is what you see on the screen. Pricing is really an art rather than a science. So there's not some simple formula that you can apply to your situation and come up with exactly the right price. There's a lot of considerations that go into it. And so we're going to talk about several of those things. So we're going to talk about why pricing is key to your success in your business. We're going to talk about how that should be guided by your business strategy. Pricing, of course, is an important component of your marketing plan, but it's only one component of several things that you would have in your marketing plan. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the how-to of setting the price for a product. We're going to talk about some pricing mistakes. I'm going to cover briefly when to adjust your prices. And lastly, we'll talk a little bit about setting prices for services as opposed to products, because they are somewhat different than product pricing. So we'll start with keys to your success. Pricing is about generating sufficient profits to support satisfactory owner compensation. It's about generating steady, positive cash flow for your business so that you have the funds available to do what you need to have a successful business. It supports investments in growth of your business, and the ability to generate the needed capital to grow your business. And of course, it costs money to expand your business, purchase new equipment, maybe purchase some brick and mortar facilities or rent them and get them ready to utilize. It involves having more inventory, so you need capital to acquire that inventory. Another key to your success that's driven by your prices is attracting and retaining a skilled team, right? You have to have a sound, sustainable business to not only attract, but to retain a talented team of people. And so it's really essential that you get things priced at the right level to generate the profits and the capital that it takes to operate a business. And lastly, it's necessary for your survival. Without profits, you won't survive long term. So that's one of the keys here to the pricing model. So your pricing should be should support your business goals. So you start with what do we want to achieve as a business? And you get your goals set, and then that will help you determine what your prices need to be. So typical goals that need to be supported by your selling prices are your sales volume growth, perhaps, that you're trying to achieve in the coming year. Perhaps your goal is higher profit margins. It might be to increase or defend your market share. It could be to increase your capacity utilization. So if you've got some manufacturing facilities and they're underutilized, they're only utilized half the time, you can significantly increase your profits by selling more product and better utilizing those facilities. Maybe your goal is to enhance your image. So, a low price suggests kind of cheap products and services. And hopefully that's not your image, but for some businesses it may be. I would posit that higher prices suggest higher quality. So an example, a couple of examples to make this point. If one business is going to sell a small pizza for $5 and your business is selling it for $8, that says something to the consumer about the quality of the pizza that they're likely to get from you for $8. Or, a landscaper who charges $25 an hour is going to seem different or have a different image than the one that charges $40 an hour. Excuse me. Or buying a charcoal grill for $49 versus selling that Weber grill for $125. So pricing does support image, and image supports pricing, higher pricing. So it's important to kind of figure out what you're doing there and to do it consistently. So some marketing questions that are impacting prices. And these are key questions that you really need to understand when you're figuring out your prices. So do the customers want what I have, what I'm offering? So this is about finding a need in the marketplace and then filling it. And when you do that, you're going to be in a position to charge a higher price than if you haven't done that. If you're just producing the same thing or selling the same thing that everyone else offers, it's going to be much harder to differentiate your product from the competition and charge a higher price. Do they value what I offer? That's really about differentiation. And if they value, if the customers value what you're offering, you'll be able to charge a higher price, and that will help sustain your business and all the things we talked about back in the key characteristics slide. So if the answer is yes to these three questions, you don't need to compete on price, right? You can establish a price that's appropriate for your business without significant regard for the competition. So it doesn't mean you ignore what the competition charges. And we'll talk a little more about that. But if you do these three things that differentiate you and fill a real need that customers have, then you'll be able to demand a premium price. So let's talk a little bit about customer behaviors. And it's important to understand, what attracts your profitable customers to you. So you need to give this some thought. You need to kind of analyze it. You need to ask your customers so that you have this knowledge about why they come to you. So here's some of the possibilities. Is it about your service that you provide? Is it about your knowledge as the business owner, that you're able to explain things to them or educate them about something that they're not fully conversant in? Are they do they come to you because you're not trying to sell them unneeded products? Right? So people don't want to feel like they're being upsold when they come in to buy a product from your establishment. And so they may come to you because others are always trying to sell them additional unneeded products, and you don't do that. Maybe they come to you because they've gotten to know you and they trust you. They trust that you're going to provide them a quality service. You're not going to gouge them on price. You're going to be available to back it up, so on and so forth. They trust you. Really important. Access. Maybe they come to you because of access. So access could mean, what are your open hours and how available are you to them? Access might be to your expertise. That it's not just people working on the counter or at the register that aren't aware of the products, but you're available as the expert to talk with customers and provide some educational content. Or is it something else? So it's really important to understand, excuse me, why satisfied customers come to you. And once you do, you'll be able to exploit that. So I want to talk just a little bit about three pricing problems or challenges. You never know for sure if you have the right price, right? So it's a little bit of trial and error sometimes. It's listening to feedback from your customers as to what they're saying about the price and how they're reacting to it. But when you establish a price, there's no certainty that it's the absolute correct price. And you have to be willing to put it out there, see how it goes, adjust if necessary, listen to the feedback, and so forth. A second problem is that businesses often let others dictate our pricing. So, excuse me. So we're letting competitors potentially dictate our price, right? So if you're just looking the marketplace and say, well, all of our competitors are charging X, so I have to charge X, that's letting your competitors dictate your price when that might not be the right price for you. A third problem is our pricing process creates a ceiling. So you never charge a customer more than the asking price. You're only ever charge them less, right? So the price you establish and publish and put on your website and list on your products is a ceiling. You're never going to get more than that. You're only going to get less if you have to make some kind of adjustment. But pricing alone does not drive sales. And that's important to really understand, that if you can differentiate yourself and sell a high quality product people put a value on, then it's not the price that's going to drive the sales, it's those other factors. Most people want to know what the product can do for them, what's included in the price, what kind of service you have to back it up, and so forth. So it's not a lot of the sales process. It's not about the price, although you have to establish prices. So let's talk about pricing strategy. So the most common pricing strategy is probably cost plus. So that means taking and determining what all of your costs are for your product or service, and then adding something for your profit. So that's what the plus is about, adding something for profit. And we're going to talk more about this in the next slide or two. So we'll come back to that concept, and I'll show you an example of how to determine what your costs are to do this cost plus pricing. So another strategy is that you probably don't want to be either at the very top of the market nor at the bottom of the market. All right, so being at the bottom of the market sends a negative message. Some people would buy because you had the lowest price in the market, but many people would not because they're concerned that it's an inferior product if you're the low priced provider. And you don't want to be, at the very top of the market and scare people away. You want to be, I think, in my opinion, somewhere above the middle of the market, so that you're getting appropriate price for your product, but you're not selling it too inexpensively. Discounting as a pricing strategy is not generally a good idea. It's very hard to break out of that mold. Once you've started offering somebody a discount for something or for some service, they expect a discount every time they come back to you. And so it becomes, well, why don't I get that 10% discount that you gave me last time? So discounting is very difficult. So it doesn't mean that you don't have some special offers where your price is lower. But a special is clearly something that has an expiration to it. Whereas discounting can be a bad habit that people get into when they come in to buy from you. So you never want to do discounting. You want to offer specials that are clear and have an end to it, or have some special event that you're doing the special price for. And so when the event is over, the special price also goes away. So it doesn't take you down a slippery slope. In pricing strategy, you also need to understand your competitors' pricing practices. So what kind of pricing do they do? Do they typically charge for a delivery or not? Is shipping included, or is it separate? And so forth. So it's important to understand, what is the competitive landscape in terms of your own pricing strategy. Your pricing should be easily understood, excuse me, and consistent with your image. So easily understood. So, if all of you, I'm sure, have looked at your cell phone bill, and if there's anybody who understands it, I'd like to talk to that person. It's a complicated mess trying to sort out why your cell phone bill is what it is. That's not easily understood pricing. It's about 180 degrees off from that. And we've talked already a little bit about the image. A higher price connotes a higher quality product, and so that's going to help you be successful, and it's going to help you attract the customers you want to your business. You need to understand what the industry practice is for the type of product or service. So, are things bundled into the price, or are they charged a la carte? Is shipping free or not? So what is the industry that you are operating in typically do in this area? And then the thing about pricing is that it requires sort of constant study and observation and frequent change. There will be changing circumstances that cause you to need to change your price. And a lot of times those are price increases, but they could also be price decreases. Think about what you see at the gas pump. Those prices go up and down quite frequently, right? So they're constantly looking at the marketplace and trying to figure out, what they can charge for the fuel. And back to where we started, the pricing strategy you adopt is key to your long-term success and your income as a business. So I'd like to talk just a little bit about price differentiators. So these are things that can allow you to differentiate yourself and charge a higher price than a number of your competitors. So our service is included. So when you buy a brand new automobile, for a lot of companies, there are free oil changes for the first, I don't know, 2 years or something that are included in the price, right? So that service, that free service has a value, and you consider that value when you're judging the price of the vehicle. There are warranties that different kinds of products have. There are, maybe there's free cleaning services, or free battery changes for watches, or things like that. So what else is included in the price is important in differentiating yourself. The return policy is important. So think about LL Bean. They're a great example of a well-known return policy. very lenient requirements in terms of allowing you to make a return. And in exchange for that, I'm quite comfortable paying them a higher price for their product, because I know if it isn't quite the right size, isn't quite the right color, when it shows up at my home, I can return it and get a full credit for that. That's worth some extra price. So important to understand that, and that's something you can differentiate yourself with. Payment terms, are you a cash only place, or do you allow people to pay in 30 days? People require lots of different payment options these days, credit cards, debit cards, and so forth. So, and I think we're getting to the point where some businesses won't even accept cash anymore, right? So some restaurants are at the point where they don't want any cash. You have to use a credit card or debit card, or one of the apps to pay your bill. So being responsive to customer desires. Delivery options, right? So do you offer free delivery charges, or not? So, if you're in the appliance business, and you sell me a washer dryer, are you going to charge me $50 to deliver those and bring them into the house, or is that going to be included in the price? So it's kind of an annoyance when I spend $1,000 buying a washer and a dryer set, and then they say, oh, by the way, it's $50 for me to deliver it to you. So the delivery options can be something that differentiates you. Shipping, who pays the shipping if you're selling off your website and your product has to be shipped? Does the customer pay? Do you pay it? Does the customer pay part of it and you pay the rest? How does that work? Rebates, if you've got manufacturing products, there might be some rebates that are helpful in setting your prices. Rewards programs, loyalty coupons, as a reward, not a loyalty discount, but loyalty coupons. That if those things can have value and can cause people to want to pay the price that you're asking for your product. And then customization of the product. Will you customize it for free? So, people in the clothing business have done for years have done clothing alterations for free. So that adds some value to the price that you're asking from people. Or if it's a piece of software, will certain programming changes or adjustments be made for free, or are you going to have to pay extra for that? So you need to identify the things that allow you to differentiate your price and charge a higher price. And then that has to be part of your story when you're talking to people about your price. So now let's talk about actually setting your prices. So you've got to calculate your cost. That's the most important thing, is to really understand your cost. And when I'm talking about cost, I'm talking about including the owner's salary and everything else. So we're going to talk more about this. I'm going to give you an example, but it includes all the fixed costs as well as the variable costs. We'll get into the details in a couple of slides here. You need to assess your competitors' prices, but don't adopt them. The competitors' prices are reference points for you. So if just a small example, if there are competitors selling the same product that you're going to sell, and three competitors, one sells for $10, one sells for $12, and one sells for $15, what will you charge? Well, I sure hope you don't charge 10, because that's a mistake to be at the bottom of the market. And you might not want to be at 15, but in my view, maybe you're at 13, right? You're kind of above the middle somewhere. because you're able to differentiate your product. You need to evaluate the value of your products and services to the customers. So certain things are worth more, right? An emergency service call, if you're a plumber, is worth a whole lot more than the regular service call to come out and make some repairs, right? If it's on the weekend and you've got a plumbing problem, it's worth more, and you're going to pay more. And so you need to identify those areas where you can differentiate and charge a different price. Quality products are worth more. Reliable products are worth more. So knowing your product and how the quality of your products compare with the competition are the things that allow you to charge more for your product. Consider your brand and your company image. Back to LL Bean, they've got a great image and a great brand recognition. And, most of us are willing to pay more to buy things from LL Bean because of that. We know we're going to get a good quality product. And we know if we're not entirely happy with it, we can return it, and so forth. And then lastly, what are you trying to achieve? What are your goals? Right? So if you're trying to increase the average sale value, or increase the gross margin percentage, or increase your profits, all of those goals will have an impact on how you set your prices. So you need to take that into account when you actually get to setting the price. So the price floor is the full cost of your product. So the price floor is the point where you would break even. You're just covering your costs. There's no profit generated, right? So that's why it's the floor. It's the absolute minimum that you should charge for your product. And really, you need to charge more because presumably you want to make a profit. So there's two major components to costs. One is fixed cost, and the other is variable cost. And we have to add the two together. So a fixed cost is a cost that doesn't change with the number of units sold. So if I sell one snowblower or 25, the fixed costs are going to be the same. If I sell 5 pizzas a day or 20 pizzas a day, the fixed costs are going to be the same. So fixed costs are things like rent, insurance, telephone, marketing, the owner draw. So those don't change by the number of units you sell. The variable costs, the reason they're called variable is because they do vary by the number of units sold. So the variable costs change for each snowblower I sell or each pizza I sell. So variable cost examples are things like materials, shipping, the labor to produce it, subcontract labor, if any, the items that I purchase for resale. Those all vary by the number I sell. So they're called variable costs. So we've got to add together the fixed cost plus the variable cost, and that gets a minimum price. So here's a little example. If starting with, so I'm calling this fully loaded cost, calculating the fully loaded cost. And so the average, if an average unit variable cost is $20, then I've got to figure out how much fixed cost to add to that to get my full unit cost. So I would take my monthly projected unit sales, or it could be your annual unit sales. And let's say in this, for this example, that's 100 units that I will sell. And I'm going to take the projected monthly indirect cost, or I could do it on the annual basis. But in this case, it's the monthly, and it's $1,000. And so I'll take that $1,000 and divide by the 100 units that I would expect to sell in a month. And that a per fixed cost of $10. So I add together the fixed cost of $10 plus the variable cost on the top line of $20. that gives me a full unit cost of $30. So I need to charge more than $30 to make a profit. So that's why this is the floor, the absolute minimum that I can charge just to cover my cost. So it's important to understand what your costs are, and this is where cost plus comes in for a pricing model. If I know my costs are $30, then I can decide how much to add to it, the plus, to determine my selling price that I need to have. Just want to touch briefly on a few mistakes in marketing that that people make. One is attempting to be the low price seller without being the lowest cost producer or provider. So if you want to be the low price seller, you absolutely have to have the lowest cost structure in order to make that work. Another mistake that people make is using the same margin for all products. So if you think about, if my overall gross margin is 40%, but product A I'm able to sell at a gross margin of 45%, and product B at 37%, and when I put it all together, it averages 40%. But if I just priced everything at 40%, I'd be losing out some of the revenue that I could have gotten for product A. So it's important to look at this on product by product or product categories if you have a multitude of products, to not necessarily use the same gross margin for all product lines. Another mistake that people make is not taking the fixed costs into account. They just think about the variable costs when trying to figure out what their price per unit needs to be. Another mistake is charging the same as the competition. What you want to do is differentiate yourself from the competition and then charge the appropriate price for your business. Discounting instead of adding value. The discounting, as I've talked about, is a treacherous path, and to charge a higher price, you need to be adding value and communicating what the value of your product is to the marketplace. Another mistake people make is setting prices too low. It's when you go in too low and then you're facing increases, it's much more difficult than if you go in a little too high and you let the marketplace kind of dictate that you need to lower the price a little. So you know, it's always a little frightening to go into the marketplace with your price, but if you're going to err on the side where it's too high, because it's easy to adjust it down a little bit if you need to. And another mistake that people make is not eliminating unprofitable products from their mix. So it's important to know what you're making on different products, and the ones that you make very, very limited profit or no profit, or you're losing money on, get rid of them. Don't offer those products. When to adjust prices. Adjusting prices is both you adjust prices when there are opportunities to increase your price and increase your profits, or you adjust when in response to challenges, and that's the common area that we see adjustments to prices. But as a smart business owner, you should also try to identify opportunities to increase your price. So when costs go up, that's an obvious one, right? Labor, the inventory costs, the shipping and transportation costs go up, you're going to have a price adjustment. When the competitors, when a lot of the competitors raise their prices, that's an opportunity for you to also raise your price, even though you hadn't been inclined to necessarily do it. If the marketplace generally is going up some, you should do it too. If you've got inventory that's not moving, that's just dollars sitting dormantly on your shelves, and so you may need a price adjustment to move that inventory out. I mean, you need a special to move that inventory, or an inventory reduction sale or something, not a discount, but a reduction sale. If your brand is clearly established, you're in a position to charge higher prices, and you can adjust your prices up as your brand becomes more well established. If you're in a high demand situation, there's an opportunity to adjust prices up. And promotions is if you need to boost sales or boost cash flow, or to move inventory, you do some kind of a promotion. That might be a price adjustment. I just want to spend a couple of minutes on pricing services, and then we'll open this up for some questions. So pricing services is a little different than pricing products, but a lot of the principles are still the same. So you need to calculate your costs, both direct and indirect. And so when you're talking about services, a lot of the direct cost will be the labor associated with providing those services. But it also might be the service van that employees use to make those service calls and deliver those services. Indirect costs are the overhead, the fixed costs again, the rent, the insurance, and so forth. You need to do a competitive analysis. So what does the competition charge for the same kind of services? And again, these are reference points for you in setting your prices. You need to define your pricing model. So are you going to charge for services based on hourly rates? Or are you going to charge based on project pricing? Or maybe you're going to have a subscription model. So your prices, the prices you charge, will depend on the type of pricing model that you think fits your business best and that you're most comfortable with. Now, one of the cautionary things about project pricing is that you have to be aware of drift in the scope of the project. So imagine the construction contractor who's building an addition on your house, and he gives you a price for the project, and you come along and say, well, I'd like you to also do this, or I'd like to change this a little, and I want to put another window on that side of the addition, and he needs to have an understanding going in that if there are changes in the scope of the project, he gets to reopen the pricing discussion with you, because that's you can't make those changes without there being some price adjustment, unless they're really minor changes. You need to factor in your desired profit margin. Maybe you would offer tiers of service, excuse me, based on the complexity of the project, or various service levels. Consider the perceived value. So if you're able to differentiate the value of your service because you have a lot of experience to bring, compared with some competitors who are relatively new at the service being offered, then that's obviously something that differentiates you and allows you to charge a higher price. Just like products, you need to regularly review your prices and make adjustments. And here too, it's important to eliminate unprofitable services, or at least reprice them. But it's important to figure out whether your pricing is working for you to generate the profits you desire. And a lot of times there are certain services that perhaps you can't really profitably do, and it's if you can eliminate them, that would be great. Or reprice them, or make referrals to other people who think they can do those services at a lower price. So thinking about your service business revenue, you've got to think about hourly rates, because your revenue is the sum of your hours billed times hourly rates. So you need to research typically hourly rates in your region or area. And then billable hours is the hard thing to figure out. 40 hours per week is probably unrealistic as billable, because there are other things that you have to do in the business. So, for a startup, you might only have 50 or 60% of your available time that ends up being billable. And if for an established business, perhaps that's 75 to 80% or 80 to 90%, but it's never 100% because there are other things you need to do for your business, such as marketing and record keeping and travel and other non-billable activities. So you need to be realistic that you cannot bill 100% of your 40 hours a week. And so that all impacts your price setting. And to summarize, your pricing strategy should be neither at the top nor the bottom of the market. You really need to understand your competitors' pricing practices and prices as reference points. Your pricing needs to be easily understood and consistent with your image. You need to be consistent with industry practice for the type of products and services. And your pricing requires constant study and frequent change, because there's nothing static about the environment. So you really need to keep an eye on your pricing and not wait too long to adjust if things are changing. And in sum, it's really key to your success and your income to get your pricing strategy correct. So with that, John, I think we could open it up and take some questions if there are some.
Sounds good, Steve. Thank you very much for your presentation. Folks, this is your time. Steve has purposely kept his presentation to a certain time so that we'll have plenty of time for you. And you may want to, you may have some for instances that you'd like to share with Steve. There may be some other things that are coming to mind as other people discuss that, but you can go ahead and put that right in the chat. One of the things I may do is I may just go ahead and I'm trying to look to see if you'd like to unmute yourself, you could also just speak right up as well.
So questions, who's got a question? Pricing is complicated.
Like one thing you said that it's more, it's also art. There's science, but there's a significant amount of art that goes into that as well.
Absolutely, there is, and a lot of it has to do with differentiating yourself and having product descriptions, having your elevator pitch right so that you can explain the value of your product, so that you're not having a discussion with your customer about the price. You're talking about the value of the service or product to the customer.
Mm-hmm. I know that was one issue that was in contracting, is that what we had to do is not just looking for the lowest price, but looking for the best value.
Absolutely. Anybody got questions?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
As a startup, what would be the rule of thumb timeline before changing your pricing? Because you got to get your name out there. So what's that sort of sweet spot between getting ahead of sort of drowning yourself and changing your prices?
Right. Well, if I would think that unless the marketplace is changing rapidly, it would be ideal not to have to change your price more frequently than once a year, because that can cause confusion with your customers and so forth. So that might be a rule of thumb, although the purchase price of restocking the items that you're selling can easily change, kind of rapidly. So you may have to respond to something, but you're not making a general price increase. So are you talking about services or products?
Products.
Products, yeah. So, you don't want to have for constantly changing prices on people. On the other hand, the reason that you change products is to ensure the success of your business, or
Mhm.
change prices. I'm sorry. So it's kind of a balancing act, but you know, if you can do it on an annual basis, that that will serve your business well, then that would be a good interval, probably.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, Steve, we have one of our participants. I'm just opening up the chat right now. It's during the startup of a business. How important is it to factor an owner salary? How does an owner figure out or know what a salary should be?
Yeah, so that's a two-part question. And to the first part, how important is it to factor in the owner's salary? It's very important. But it makes the equation a little bit different. If the full owner salary is in the fixed costs, then that's going to get calculated into the price, and so all the costs plus the owner's salary would have been paid by the price that you've established. If only part of it's in the cost, then you've got a different situation. But in terms of figuring out what is the right salary, a lot of times the right salary is what's the right salary for you and your family, right? How much do you need to take out of the business to pay your personal family obligations? And that's the right salary for you. And so moderated, of course, by you know, what the marketplace is. So if your family circumstance was such that you had to earn a salary of $100,000 a year, and that might seem a little high for the local environment, then that might not be the right salary to factor into your pricing. But I think the owner's salary that you're trying to achieve should be what you need to take out of the business. And that sometimes you're calling it a salary, but it could also be it could be an owner draw that you're taking out. It's the same thing in terms of the cash that comes out of the business to support the owner and his personal family needs. Other questions?
Steve, in pricing a service as opposed to a product, what would you advise clients to be looking at in terms of that?
Yeah, so in terms of pricing the service, you're still going to look at kind of the environment around you and what competitors are charging. Those are reference points for you in terms of what the market finds acceptable for that type of service. But the end of the day is you know, can you differentiate yourself and the value of your service from the competition in such a way that that you're able to charge a higher rate than a lot of your competitors, right? So it's just like products in terms of how do you differentiate yourself? And in the service business, it's based on your credibility and your experience in that line of work. If you're in your second year as a service provider offering bookkeeping services, you're not going to be able to charge the same hourly rate as the CPA who's been doing it for 25 years. So experience, reputation, credibility are all things that will allow you to differentiate yourself in terms of the pricing.
Right. Thank you, Steve. Do we have any other questions? You can feel free to unmute yourself and speak right up, or you can just put it into the chat. And Steve, just to fill a little bit of the time, I wanted to make sure that people understood that we will be sending you a recorded version of this webinar along with Steve's slide deck and contact information. One other thing that we are just launching now in the past couple weeks is that we have a YouTube channel at SCORE Maine. Just get on YouTube and put in the search SCORE Maine, and you'll find this uploaded as well as other webinars that may be of interest to you as well.
What other challenges are people finding in trying to figure out their prices?
Where do you go to find prices, Steve? Do you just call competitors, or is it just an observation type of thing?
Yeah, it's probably observation. It's talking to friends and other people you know who might be in the same line of work in terms of what they're seeing, what they're charging, if they're willing to share that information. There are some places if you're part of a particular industry, a lot of times you can get the industry association will have information available to you that you can determine what hourly rates, typical hourly rates are. You can use the public library to go to their business department and ask them to help you research what typical hourly rates would be for the service.
Great.
I just had a quick question.
Yes, Joan.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having this. This has been great. My question has to do with the variable cost directly related to the number of units sold. So if we're a SaaS platform, and so we have 3 different tiers.
Yeah.
And so at the number of units sold is where I'm having an issue. So would I say how many of the first tier, how many of the second tier, how many of the third tier, add the total price of what I actually charge for it, divided by, 3? Or, I mean, how would I get
Well,
to something
well,
that I can use for that? Sorry.
You probably charge a different price for each tier, right?
Yes.
So the
Yep.
variable cost is going to be different for each tier. So you would do it tier by tier.
Tier by tier. So you
Yeah.
wouldn't just add them all up and
No.
divide the total by 3 and figure it as an average cost for each one. So
Yeah, probably not, because they could be quite different from for the 3 different tiers. So just like if you were selling products, you would kind of do it product by product. And so for services and selling in tiers, I would do it tier by tier.
Mm-hmm. That makes it really difficult to try to figure out the exact variable cost. So I guess we can get it close. But.
Yes, I think it doesn't have to be exact, because let's say you came up with your estimate and the cost for tier 1 is $110. Well, if it turns out that it was really 112 or 108 instead of 110, that's not going to have a huge impact on the price, right?
Right.
You're still going to be a high enough margin above the cost, even if you misestimate the cost a little bit, so that it's much better than just pulling something out of the air and winging it to try to estimate the cost the best you can.
Right. Thank you.
Sure thing.
I think the better the estimate, or the stronger the estimate, the least likely you are to be surprised in a bad way, that is.
Right.
Do we have any others who would like to share an example or a for instance or whatever? This is your chance. You're part of the presentation. Steve, is there anything you'd like to recap before we're almost at, we got 3.5 minutes to go till we hit the hour.
Yeah, so the last thing I would say about it is to keep in mind that this is an art, not a science. There's no perfect formula that's going to tell you what price to charge. And the other thing is that if you would like a little help doing that, the price estimating, you can always contact SCORE and get a mentor who could look over your shoulder a little bit on this and react to what you've done and give you a little feedback on it. Or there are other organizations in addition to SCORE who do mentoring that you could also get some help with. So you don't necessarily have to go it alone because this is complicated.
Like Steve said, that we offer free one-on-one mentoring at SCORE, no charge to you, and we have a great deal of experience, a lot of depth, and of other people who help us in a variety of different disciplines there too. I'd like to thank everybody for attending today's workshop. Like I said before, we will send you a copy of the slides to review, as well as a link to the recorded webinar. It'll take us a couple days to put it together, so please be patient with us, but we will not only send it to you, but load it on our SCORE Maine YouTube channel, which I would encourage you to go ahead and search for and just be aware of, so that there may be some other workshops that are of value to you as well. You'll also receive a brief survey, online survey from SCORE about the event. We really do appreciate your feedback. We take your feedback very seriously. And as a reminder, SCORE Maine, we offer free confidential one-on-one mentoring, whether you're starting or growing your business. And it's easy to request a meeting with a mentor simply by visiting score.org and filling out a brief online form. And we are a nonprofit partner of the SBA with 170 chapters around the country and 3 right here in Maine. And we've helped over 11 million entrepreneurs since 1964. And we hope to see you again at one of our future events. I'm going to go ahead and end it now. Thank you very much, Steve. Really appreciate your wisdom.
Thank you, everyone.
Good to see you, Joan. Good to see you, Jessica. And thank you, everyone, for attending.